Hi everyone, hello from the EFM virtual film market. It's really cool. So as I'm sure you know, it's not possible to actually move around and go to Berlin to attend the Berlinale and European film market. So what's happening? Well, we're all doing it online, which is great. So for the modest sum of 89 euros, I have registered as a participant in the EFM market. So a few takeouts I want to bring to you with respect to, industry analysis, what's happening, in the film industry at the moment, especially under the impact of COVID. It's really quite enlightening. As you all know, in the music industry, the move from basically films and DVDs and CDs. Sorry, the move from CDs and basically tangible material way on which music was stored into the digital realm through streams. This happened, I'd say now, 7 years ago, more or less, and then it really became mainstream, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. Now everybody's got, some basically the music either stored on their computers and hard drives, if they're still using MP3 files, or they have all the music that they basically select on streaming services like Spotify or Deezer, etc. So this, in the music industry was the earliest adopter in the creative industries in taking advantage of streaming. And it wasn't on their own volition that they did it, okay? The record labels, the big majors, etc. No, it's because of piracy, because there was lots of piracy with the likes of Napster, where all the basically the MP3 files were being hijacked by people who didn't want to buy CDs anymore. So that forced the music industry to get into the realm of the digital revolution. But with the film industry, it wasn't like that, okay? So theaters, right, where you go, actually physically go, buy your 15 euros or dollars or pounds ticket and actually sit for an hour and a half with your co-fellow watchers, that they don't want to go away, right? And it's only this pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic, which is really making some massive changes in the film industry. Finally, it was about bloody time. So what's happening in particular? Well, theaters are closed in most places around the world, so that's that, okay? So today, the paradigm, the question is no longer, are we going to have a theatrical release, yes or no, before we put all the films online on streaming services? No, this is no longer the question. While a year ago, this was still the question, the day and date release, like a lot of basically consumers of content were asking for a day and date release, which is the concept of having the film ready to watch, both in theaters through the theatrical release, as well as on streaming services, okay, at the same time. And still a year ago, this was like a huge palaver that all the theater owners were doing, that because they insisted on getting a theatrical release first, and then 1 or 2 months later, then you can have access to the new film on streaming. Well, this is no longer the paradigm here. The question is, how are you going to stream your new film? And what's going to be the streaming distribution channel you're going to use, right? This is the new question. And I think that actually the major studios in particular still haven't quite, got round to this. They still, for example, postponing the release of major films like the Dune film with Timothée Chalamet, and also the next Wes Anderson movie. This has been postponed to, indefinitely, probably to 2022, because they absolutely want to have a theatrical release. Hello, guys. This is just forget about the old world. This is over, okay? The COVID-19 pandemic is going to be recurring, I think, for quite a while. Every time we're going to have like a cold weather, there's probably, like the flu, going to be this risk of the COVID-19 virus. So you have to adapt. So I really don't see, theaters opening again on a permanent basis in the near future. But still, major studios like Warner Brothers and Universal and Sony, they still delay and postpone the release of these major films because they absolutely want to have some theatrical release, which means that they have this backlog, all right? They have this backlog of titles that they are keeping. But anyway, this is a strategy at the moment, which I don't think is, within the times. I think it is unrealistic, but that's a problem. So as I was saying, one of the main takeout I'm getting from this EFM virtual session is that the new paradigm is how are you going to distribute your content, your new film on streaming? Which streaming distribution channel are you going to choose? Because nowadays, since around a year ago, a lot of studios have actually decided to also have their own streaming service, like the likes of HBO, the likes of Disney, obviously, and I think Paramount as well is also thinking of having its own streaming service. So that means that there's like this whole increase of streaming services, which is coming out of the woodwork, and us consumers, the end consumers are like, okay, so how do I actually get to see the film I want to see without piracy, without having to resort to the likes of Time for Popcorn and stuff like that? Well, it's complicated because you've got Apple TV, you've got, as I was saying, you've got Netflix, you've got HBO, you've got Disney and etc. And they're all popping up, because all these studios, they want to have control over the way their content is distributed. So since all these new streaming services have come out, like Disney, like HBO, etc., a lot of content has actually been removed from Netflix, which used to be like the almost monopolistic streaming service. Netflix is present is in all the countries in the world except from Iran, China, and I think Algeria. And these are the three. All the other countries you can have access to Netflix from. Okay, so that shows you the enormous spread of Netflix around the world. And so, while I think I understand the position of the big film studios, which is that they want to create their own streaming service in order to be able to control, the distribution of the content which is put on the streaming services, since theaters are out of the equation, and then they can also put all their catalogs, right? Because they've got, of course, enormous amount of backlog catalogs, the likes of Warner Brothers and Universal and Sony on these streaming platforms. But the problem for us, the end consumer, is like, so I'm going to pay £15 for Disney every month, and I'm going to pay £15, like £10, I think, for Netflix, and then if I want to see something special on HBO, I also have to pay like £15. That's not realistic. We need for the film industry. That's my take, but we need for the film industry the likes of a Spotify, where you have all the music you can possibly dream of on just one platform, right? Which is the Spotify platform. That is, I think, the model we need to get to for the film industry. But the studios, especially the major studios, they still haven't got there, right? They still don't get that. Well, it's very choice, but hopefully in the future they'll understand that we need one or two main streaming platform for films. Another very interesting takeout I'm getting from these EFM sessions, industry sessions, is that because now the streaming distribution channels are the main channels to see content, there's an enormous move away from global content, which means basically US-made content, to other countries' content. And that's really interesting in the sense that now, for example, Netflix has shifted its agenda from global to to global. Sorry, I meant to global, which is non-US. Okay, so there's US versus non-global versus global, which is non-US. And now up to 60% of new productions made by Netflix are made outside the US. So I think in this era of, diversity, making sure that everybody, gets to play the game, I think it is fantastic. And that the likes of Netflix are now making sure that a lot of different cultures, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different stories coming from these different cultures are coming to the main distribution channels, which are the streaming distribution channels, and 60% of them are non-US, which is great. So this is the approach taken by Netflix, but I'm fairly sure that the other streaming services will also adopt this strategy to have more global, i.e. non-US content coming to their platforms if they want to, increase their audience reach. And not everybody is interested in US-only stories. And yeah, so basically the main takeout from the EFM is the digitization of the industry, of the film industry, and it was about time. It was about time because there was so much resistance from those theaters and also from these major players in the studios that this was really taking too much time, and the pandemic is forcing all these stakeholders from the film industry to get into this digitization process, and that is wonderful for us. And consumers is wonderful. I don't have any problem with watching my films from my tablet, my iPad, or my screen, my MacBook Pro screen at all. However, on the production side of things, right, a very concerning issue that has arisen out of the COVID-19 pandemic is the cost of insurance. It's becoming very, very difficult to actually get all these productions to the production stage. So there's a pre-production stage where you do you write the story, you do the casting, you prepare all the the decor, the places, the locations where you're going to shoot, etc. So there's pre-production, there's production where you actually do the shooting of a film on location, and then there's post-production where you do all the special effects and dubbing and also editing, obviously, etc., etc. So the production stage of making a movie is becoming increasingly expensive because of the insurance costs. So it's very difficult, especially for indies, to get insured. So the financiers actually have to step in and basically cover these insurance this risk relating, which are usually insured by insurance. Here they can't get insured. So of course that means that on set you really do need to have a very strict and stringent COVID-19 health and safety policy in place that all your staff needs to comply with. I remember Tom Cruise being basically pointing the finger at because on the set of the shooting of his last film from his Mission Impossible franchise, which was in the UK a few months ago, before December 2009. I mean, it was in December 2020 that the polemic actually arose. But basically, he actually told off some staff who were on the set, I think at Pioneer Studios in the UK, because they were too close to each other, not wearing a mask. He actually was enraged by that because he said, I'm trying to get this set up and running and making sure that nobody gets COVID because we don't want it to shut down, and you guys are closing very, very close, working very, very close to each other in front of a screen, not wearing a mask. Just get the fuck on with it and put a mask on and keep your 2 meters a distance away from each other to ensure that you are complying with our COVID-19 pandemic. And so that is really, really critical in production stage to actually have a proper health and safety COVID-19 policy in place. Okay, bye for now, guys. Getting back to the EFM sessions. Bye.